Signore e signori, abbiamo più influenza, sui tuoi figli di te. Molly amiamo creato e iniziato da New Jersey. Last week today live presentato da Filtastic, Comics and Art.
Let's fucking go.
Hey everybody, welcome back to the channel. Oh, some destinations have errors. Okay, what does that mean? Okay, LinkedIn is not seeing us, but that's okay for now. We'll figure that out later. Welcome back to Filtastic Comics and Art. I am Filtastic. We have our guest waiting in the wings, but as you can see, I am not in the living room. I am downstairs once again. A lot of changes going on. As you can see, too, the office might be a little discombobulated at the moment. I think I did a pretty good job of finding the angle that doesn't show how much, but more on that tomorrow if you've been following my vlog series. But why don't we see? We don't have many people with us quite yet. Cliff might still be, I guess, streaming, but let's see who we've got here. Las Cruces, who, how come I can't show? There we go. Is Las Cruces and everybody streaming. We appreciate you nonetheless, sir. Joe from Anachronic made it. And see, Joe, as promised, I'm wearing my shirt here. And I am upholding, yes, the concert t-shirt rules. That's what I do when I'm doing streaming as well. You know, it doesn't make sense for me to wear your show's t-shirt when I'm on your show. But see, this way I'm on my own channel. So people who don't necessarily watch you but watch me could say, oh, what's the story with that shirt? And there you go. That's how they find your channel. That's my story and I'm sticking to it. Mr. Wellbore, how are you, sir? Neil Collects is here. Neil, I didn't stick around to see who won the cover battle, but you made some good choices, sir. That X Factor run happens to be one of my favorite runs, period. Great, well done volume. Little painter's tape on my coffee cup there from Peter David. That was done, I know, while he, around the time he had a stroke. So some definite kind of ups and downs there, too. Oh, the Godfather is in the building. Brian LCS, how are you, sir? By the way, nominations for the Comic Book Community Awards are now open. Go ahead and go to cbcawards.org and nominate your favorite channel. What was that? Oh, okay. I thought there was something going on. Apparently it might be just noise from outside. My bad. But yeah, go ahead and nominate your favorite channel. I'm going to pull this year. I'm going to campaign actively for worst channel. So there we go. Canadian Survivalist, how are you, sir? I hope that you are surviving out there, working and lurking, aren't we all? Lady Prime, how are you? I hope Fanboy is feeling better. Maybe get some rest. Maybe he'll be back next week. Oh, Fanboy, how are you, sir? I hope you're feeling better. I didn't watch the whole show today, but Lady did you proud. And Ollie did a great job, too. Dale of Suspense, great channel. Great channel. Dale's got some great stuff going on there. If you don't know, now you do. And now you can go check him out. Too many to call out. There's never too many to call out. Phil's Ghost. Ooh, I don't know what happened there. Hashtag CBCA. There you go. Okay. Well, we said hi to everybody here. Let's go ahead and get our special guest on. To the stage now is Dr. Evil Mike. How are you, sir?
Howdy. Hi, everybody.
You know, it's weird. We have not had our book club in a while. I know we're coming up next week. And it was like, I feel like I'm missing something. And it's our little quartet with Mike there. So, which reminded me I have to catch up on.
Do the reading.
Quickly, yes. There's been too much time.
It's not a long book, especially the audio. I think I've done it 3 times so far because it's really like I listen to it at work and it's like maybe a day and a half I get it done at work, you know, and it doesn't even last the whole week. It's a short book.
Yeah, see, that's the thing though. I was doing a lot of my listening during the week while I was working because I need to multitask. But I'm starting my new job on Monday. I probably, and I'll be in the office. So I'm probably not going to have the same leeway of listening and watching videos while working, at least yet. So we'll figure it out.
Do it like an hour here, hour in there, especially if you do it like starting today, you still, it won't be that
Yeah,
bad.
yeah. No, and part of it too is just, I need to find that kind of quiet time to just pull away from everybody.
Yeah.
So I tried to listen to it, I think while making breakfast one Sunday, and it wasn't happening. Too many questions.
There's sometimes if I'm doing too much while listening to it, because I mean, I work in construction, but usually I can get away with listening to stuff and paying attention to it and stuff. But there's sometimes if I'm doing too many measurements or stuff like that, I'll not be, focused on the dialogue. I have to like rewind, go back a couple chapters, be like, wait, I know I missed something. And for me, I've read all this. So there have been times where I'm like, especially in the last book, and we'll call it, there were moments where I was like, wait a minute. Oh, we haven't got to that part. And damn, I skipped that somehow. Like I had to go back like a couple chapters because I just wasn't paying that great of attention.
Yeah, early on, it was either during the first and second book, right before they were talking about Roland's past, with the chef. I was next. No, I wouldn't say next door. In the room next door, just organizing my comics and going back and forth. And I wound up zoning out for about like 5 or 10 minutes. Like, wait, hold on a second. I need to go back. I don't remember what was said.
Okay, so to be honest, there's a lot of parts because Stephen, I mean, if you don't know this by now, because I know Trev, this is like, I think all he's read from Stephen King. So it's different when you've read his other books and then you come into this, because I can say I did read a couple other books before I started the Dark Tower track. So you kind of get, there are like, since he goes into so much explanation, especially with details and the imagery that he's trying to cast, there are a ton of moments that are just forgettable, and they could be big sections of the story that either due to they didn't appeal to you or he's just going off on a tangent for some reason.
Yeah.
But that kind of does come up quite a bit, especially in a big story like the last book. I can say there's like specifically two parts, and when he was going like really in detail with the farmers and stuff like that, background characters, and it's like, do I even need to know all this? It's like, and the mind kind of just logs it as a way as like an unforgettable moment.
Yeah, and that's me. This is the first Stephen King story I've read or listened to. I read his memoir, and I've seen some of the films, but it's. I quickly found myself being like, all right, he just likes to talk about everything else. And at first, the way I took it is, he's maybe got some clues that are just kind of scattered in this stuff over here. But now I'm learning that he just likes to wander. Yeah.
So Trev gets this like, because Trev will ask me questions and I will answer to a degree, and I will spoil stuff because Stephen King is not afraid to spoil the endings of his books. He doesn't believe in that term spoiling. Almost every chapter that there's moments where he spoils the story itself. If you're reading in between the lines and stuff, you just have to like, pick up the pieces before then. But so Trev has asked some in-depth questions, and it's usually that he doesn't go too overboard. He hasn't asked about the ending or, nothing like that. So he gets a little like, I will help them out in certain degrees, especially when your imagination comes into it, kind of thing. But I mean, because like from the start, from book one, and there's conversations in the chat. That's why, specifically the Nomin. I love Nomin. And Nomin was one of my first choices. Him and Aaron, we've been talking about doing this for a long time. So. That chat behind it when he was like, I don't understand this aspect of the book. That's one of the biggest riddles of the book, and it's answered throughout the series. By the end, it's not a riddle. Like, I'll say this, he does have a lot of like riddles throughout the book, and they're hidden. And he doesn't go into detail and answer them until the end. There's some things that, you do have to wait and stuff like that. But he goes out of his way to like, for a long time, he like kind of embeds it in there, and he kind of like, highlights it a little bit, and then eventually, like, he'll get to a point in the story, and it's usually halfway, where he'll grab your hand and he'll be like, I mean, like the Everything 19. At this point, it's past the point where he's grabbing your hand and he's like, "This is something big. You need to focus on this."
Yeah.
Um, he has like a really strong way of doing that in his books, and even if you still haven't gotten it by that point, at the end of the book he will explain, he will, like, in both versions, a very intelligent way, and then he'll even do like a dumbed down version for the people,
I mean, plain and simple, and I'm not going out on a limb here. That's just the mark of a good writer.
It is.
You know,
I
uh,
could say a couple things that he does well is like kids. He has some, like, I mean, and people have asked this about him, but he has some way of like watching people and replicating that as far as within his writing, and he's really good with kids. Like his children characters are usually like, most people's favorites. That's like Jake in this book. He's one of the more memorable characters, and it's because he comes off as a very believable, kind of character. Most guys around that age can kind of either on one form or level, like, kind of, have similarities with Jake, that kind of thing.
see, what I was going to say is interesting because you know how many times I've read a book, comic or otherwise, or seen a film, and I feel like they don't understand pacing. So what could have been like a great reveal, for example, or what could have been a great detail is just kind of like, eh. But I do understand what you're saying too, as far as how he does write the characters very, very well. Um,
I, I
and
will say you're also getting to see something unique within a writer, because the sagas spanned over so many years within his writing career.
mm,
In the very beginning, you could see this writer taking like huge leaps as far as what he would try within the writing. And it's funny when you hear the real story behind, like, how it got published, blah blah blah. He was very, like, not confident at all. You're talking about, I mean, Carrie, he literally threw in the trash, and his wife is the reason that she pulled it out by accident and read it and loved it. But a lot of his, like, earlier stuff is a lot like that, where he was just so weird and whatever that he didn't think anybody was, else on the same weird level, kind of thing. But
yeah,
through the progression, I mean, you see him dabbling and stuff, and even where we're at, I'd still say he's still like at a kind of finding out what his. I mean, because after these books, that's when he started pumping out like 4 or 5 books a year. That's
mm,
when he went into like legit, like, and
yeah. And like if you know, I know you've read it, Mike, but for people tuning in, if you haven't read his memoir, I had to read it as part of a writing class, and I was just kind of blown away. A lot of the stuff you're saying with Carrie is right in there too, and you do get that, kind of full almost hero's journey of being like an unconfident kind of novice writer, just writing in his room, and he did not grow up in the best environment. Um, just submitting things to like sci-fi magazines to uh, there's there's I think it's like one of the ending paragraphs, to be honest with you, that to me was just so great. I actually shared it with people from work, where he's talking about, and I think it kind of hit me a different way because right at the time, I think we were either my wife just got pregnant or she was maybe like a month or so away from giving birth, and he has this whole, again in just one paragraph, like, look, I've had, and I'm paraphrasing, I've had the giant office with the giant desk. I've had this kind of setup. I've had that kind of setup. He said, but the one that I like the most is just having a desk in my office with a TV and a couch and letting my kids come in and just hang out while I write because it kind of grounds you. And yeah, I reading that and then reading the series, knowing that it progressed as he grew, you definitely can get the feeling that, okay, he's not the same writer he was when he started this story.
Mhm. That was, a lot of people kind of focus when they talk about King, they focus on him, especially when, like, if I've watched a lot of Tower Talk and stuff like that. There's so many mysteries that are solved, and they're just left up to you, the imagination. So it's fun hearing other people's theories and what where their imagination takes them, kind of thing. But
Yeah.
one thing I can say about reading this, I'm not big into like reading people's bios or the acknowledgments and stuff like that. With King, it's kind of interesting because you've seen progressions of Joe Hill and, since they were babies. Like if you read, Carrie, he kind of mentions, his daughter and his son at the very when they were first being born. And then,
Mhm.
you pick up a book a couple of years later and he acknowledges that, Joe's in middle school or, Tabitha, no, but he gives you these little bits and pieces of his family throughout the years and of himself because he has, like, especially with the Bachman books, when he started acknowledging himself as Bachman, like, he kind of went into greater detail about how that was and how he came up with that and why it needed to be kind of thing. To me, that was really interesting. Like, I mean, because that's come up before, but I don't think a lot of people use that, pseudonym writer thing the way he did it. It
Yeah.
into this whole, person. I mean, somebody literally had to uncover that it was King kind of thing.
Mhm. I
What's up,
should
King?
note, just in case you're just tuning in or you don't know what we're talking about, Mike, I guess you could say proctors, for lack of a better word, we call it like a virtual book club that we've been going on for several months now, reading Stephen King's Dark Tower series. You could find that on Mike's channel. I would put a link in, but I can't, and my buddy Trev isn't here, unfortunately. But look up Evil Mike, Evil's Comics, and you'll be able to find it too. We had taken a little bit of a break, but we will be back next week. From am I right on it?
Hmm.
Good, because I need to finish the book. But getting back to
Yes,
King,
on the 29th.
yeah,
I had to turn around and look at the calendar.
good. Yeah, that is 1 week. Okay, good. One thing about King too that I have to admire, that I feel like I noticed it more in the '90s, to be honest with you, but probably was more prevalent then as well. David put it up. Thank you, David. Um, I don't know if it's the publishing industry in general. They're very quick to kind of say, "Hey, this is that writer you should read." It's very much like a kind of a cult of personality thing. And again, it probably kind of started before I even realized it. But one thing, watching King a little bit more and having him more on my radar as I've grown older, I've kind of realized that he's not really about that. He's not really, I'm Stephen King, here's my book. It's, I feel like writing about this, here you go. And I appreciate that. I feel like he almost makes fun of himself sometimes too.
Well, what's kind of funny, I have watched a lot of King interviews and interactions and stuff like that, and I don't do that with a lot of celebrities. I have that policy, you should meet your heroes because you do have a different, idea of who and what they are. But with King, it's interesting because when people ask for a recommendation, well, what book should I read from you? He'll recommend other great writers.
Mm.
He'll recommend, and it won't be just some old stuff. Oh, J.R.R. Tolkien, go read Lords of the Rings. He'll recommend all that too because he's read all that. But no, he reads current stuff. I mean,
Marcus.
him on. What's up, sir? Well, him as far as like movies, TV, comics, and books. I don't think I've ever come across a famous individual that intakes as much as he does. I mean, usually if it's a horror series, sci-fi series, fantasy series, whether it's TV, Marvel, Stephen King usually already watched it. And not only that, but commented on it. And not one of those comments that you get on the back of a book. He's usually like verbally commented on Twitter or like, I mean, I want to say, I think his read list per year is like 800 books a year is what he goes through.
Oof.
And I don't even know his movie count is, but I mean, beside this is also including this past year. I mean, he's already dropped 3 brand new books, all bestsellers, like, and he's still got 2 more on the way and one hidden that we don't know about. And
Mm.
that might be Tet related.
What do you mean by like a hidden book?
He does they'll like a lot of authors, like especially when they're writing at this capacity, dropping like 4 or 5 books a year. He'll publicly announce that, years before, hey, I'm dropping this book on this date, or for pre-orders and stuff like that. They usually do like a mystery reveal of one book per year that he does that they don't announce until like a month or something before that. But lately on Twitter, he's been hinting that he wants to go back to the Tower series.
Mhm.
Like he hasn't said anything in stone, but he keeps making Tower references, and it's not towards a movie or a TV show. It's book related. I forget the exact quote, but he said something like cause a wheel. I feel like heading back to the old typewriter or something like that.
Hmm. Two quick things. First, welcome Marcus and Trev. Trev, we were just talking about you. Glad that you made it.
Trev.
Glad that you're feeling better. Marcus, I have to watch, from what I understand, your Heroes Con video. I haven't been watching too many
Marcus's
of them.
was the best. Marcus's
That's-
was the best. Okay,
Everybody
because
keeps saying that. Yeah.
he highlights everybody. Like I don't even know if I commented on Marcus, and I have to go back and check because right after I saw Marcus's, not only am I in the fields because it's bringing back memories and all. Okay, but like the way he edited and like showcases every single person. I showed it to my boss. I was showing it to like, because like you could actually see like all the different YouTubers and how who they were and blah blah blah. Like my boss ate that shit up. A couple of different workers thought it was really really cool because I showed him like DJ Link's video and a couple other like because everybody was asked like that was the one thing I can say I was bad about is I didn't take a lot of like the first day I should have been filming. And for me, the first day I got to the con, it was more like, and I've said this, it was more like an exotic treasure hunt. Like you just had to find a YouTuber and it was free hugs kind of thing. Like, hey, Roscoe, hey, Marcus, hey. And then some people got me from behind. The first person, when I got to the con, because I got off the bus, made it to the convention center, like I got spotted before I even made it to the con because Justin Birch got me from behind. I was like, what the hell? I was like, how did you even know that was me? I was like, what the hell?
Yeah. So I have to say that's an aspect of collecting that I miss just going to cons. The last time I was at a con, we're talking was 2000, I think 17 or 18, and it was right around here, the Garden State Comic Fest. Actually, that's going on this weekend. And it's just now, hey, look, money wise, priority wise, it's still a little far out of reach. Like even
See, I could
right
say that's why this was a different trip for me because like I do have a Heroes Con video coming eventually. I plan to drop it like after me and Trev do the live. But like my recap isn't filled with grails and stuff because I didn't pick up a lot. Honestly, I picked up 3 items and one was from one guy. I picked up 2 of his books, and then I picked up 1 book from Rodney Barnes. That was literally like all I spent at the con. The rest of the money I had for that trip was like food, travel, like extras at the con and stuff to survive while I was there because I was there from Thursday and I left like Monday in the middle of the night, so I was there for a good like.
Oh,
4
you were there
days.
for a good chunk of time.
Mhm.
Yeah, I mean, I'll say this too. It's just so different because from how I used to go to cons. Because when I went to New York Comic Con, I was always. This was, of course, before I was doing anything on YouTube. You're talking. I think the last time I went to New York Comic Con is I want to say maybe 2010. One of my friends are into comics, so I was going solo. So the only time I've gone to a con with somebody, I took my wife. Both years we went to Garden State Comic Fest, and it was a different experience because one, I was just kind of saying, "Hey, look, this is a con. This is what happens here," and I even had to explain, like, because we had planned to do New York Comic Con, and it just was too expensive at the time. I was like, "Look, basically, the difference between what we're doing here and what we're doing at New York Comic Con is about 1,000% larger, probably more." But yeah, I that kind of camaraderie that I've been seeing in everybody's pictures and videos, that's what I really want to tap into. Because like I said, I have not had that at a con.
This was probably my first because I'm kind of like you. I've never really had that experience. I took my wife and kids to like maybe 2 smaller cons, but even then, she was more interested in like the cosplay or the cars that they brought, that kind of stuff. She wasn't really into the artist or writers or the comics or the panel, that kind of stuff. So I never really had this experience where I got to walk around with con with like-minded individuals that wanted to do con stuff. I could say that was the biggest dilemma, and people have. Now I haven't heard anybody talk about this, but the biggest dilemma for me at Heroes Con was there were so many of my friends. I didn't know who to spend like time with when
Yeah.
it was like I might have been with like Ben for like, an hour, Ben Parker comics, and I might have been with him for an hour, and then I'd run into like Marcus, and I'd spend like 20 minutes with him, and I'd see like Roscoe, and for me, it wasn't enough time to like it definitely wasn't enough time to do the whole con. I mean, well, I got all my con stuff like technically done on Friday, but like as far as like everything to see, I'm still seeing con videos, and damn, that was there. That was there. I did that. Brian was showing cars and all, but I didn't see any of the cars. Like, and I thought I had walked around the whole damn con because I did a lot of walking. um,
Yeah,
but
that I have to say, what two things struck me from watching, just looking at pictures and everything. Number one, and I think Joe pointed this out last night on his show. It looks like it's a very kind of a roomy con. Like it's not like going to New York Comic Con where you're
huge,
like just all
huge.
crammed in, and that
A
looks
very big
refreshingly
venue,
different.
and it was okay. So Saturday is definitely by far the busiest day. Friday was probably the best day to go.
Mm-hmm.
The con did open on Thursday or whatever, but I want to say like all the artists and stuff don't really get there till Friday. So I mean, it's just vendors and stuff like that on Thursday or panels. Okay, so Friday is definitely the best day. Like if the lines were very minimal, all the people I needed to go, they were either no lines, small lines, or not that much. Okay, so Saturday was the thickest day, and it's just the way the venue spread out. There's a big like hallways to walk through, and then even through the vendor space, there was still, I want to say, a good like 3 to 4 people arm length distance in between. I mean, as far as a con goes, especially a big con, because it doesn't sound like a big con until you get in. It's a huge con. I want to say technically it might be like 3 city blocks long because it's
Wow.
technically like the convention center is like one building, but it does have this like separate thing that connects to like another building, and all that's in the con. I mean, the con was like, I want to say it's 3 floors. You had to go down like a floor to get to the main floor, but they had panels and stuff on the second floor. They had I don't know if the videos do it justice because I watched a lot of Heroes Con videos last year, kind of planning for this year, and like it's a huge con. I want to say it reminds me of Big Apple Con, like space wise, like because I have been to that con, but like as far as like space between people, I never been to a con that was this nice, spacious. I don't have any of those stories where bad smells or people smell funky or there was other bad stories like people just standing in the middle of like I don't know, but we were kind of prone to that too, like especially with the YouTuber groups. We would like there'd be like 8 or 9 of us congesting like next to a random booth. The random booth is probably like, are you gonna buy something? Damn.
Hey, can you guys like just let people come to me? Well, maybe they liked it because it was like, oh, if it looks busy,
it brought in people.
Okay, so
exactly.
Yeah.
So that was one of the funnest parts of the con was Nauman's booth. I love Nauman's booth. I hit Nauman's booth up more than
I've heard
any other booth. Like I want to say C3 and Nauman's booth were like the 2 booths that kept coming back because C3 was awesome because not only are they doing an amazing thing, not only do you get to meet all the people that are associated with C3 because they were there the whole weekend. Not only that, but they always had like famous artists doing work right on the table, and I mean they had Jose. I'm gonna say his name wrong. Was it Martin Sabala? I mean I want to say from Friday and Saturday and big chunks of Sunday, he was doing like live work right then and there.
Speaking of C3, I'd be remiss if I didn't mention there are still copies of the art book available. Go to DJ Lynx's page. If you go on his Instagram, there's a link to it. Get yourself a copy of the art book. There's also some great prints available. I've purchased the Brand Flakes print. I don't know if that one is still available. And also, I happen to have it right here. Yeah, I showed it off last night. Ignacio's print is amazing.
I'm Goo over Gaga for Taylor Winder's piece because a lot of those pieces I didn't get to see until like the con. Yeah, I do love that piece.
Taylor's was awesome too. It is one of
Oh
my
man, the
favorites.
ice, the Mr. Freeze. Oh,
Yeah, and
mm,
I mean, I can tell you, like, we were not. That was by design. Like, we were not allowed to show any of our work
yeah.
until the book was
I, di-
released,
I
and it makes
I didn't
sense.
get to see Namens. I didn't get to see Drax. Like, man, I mean, yeah, at the con, I mean, like, I think it was the night of the dinner. It was when I finally got to see the book and like look through it. And I was with Namen, and he was kind of like, "Hey, this is this person's art and that person." I was just amazed, like the pieces that are in there and the effort and the thought that like for instance Namen's piece and his whole design and what he put in there. It's
Yeah,
fantastic.
but I mean, I could tell you too. It just being a part of it was just amazing. Like it, and I'll say this too, it was a little nerve wracking. Just I'm very much into just drawing on my iPad right now, just the ease of use.
Mhm.
And it does make you a little bit lazy when you do try to draw on pen and paper. In case you guys didn't know, if you really like our pieces, come October, when we're doing the actual C3 event, you may be able to bid on some of the actual original.
Bridge.
Yeah. And,
And that was one of the cool things at the C3 booth is they had some of the originals showcased, and I didn't know who they were attributed to until like Namen was like, this is this, but like seeing that was like Taylor's piece. Taylor's piece was there, and it was just it's so pretty. It's beautiful.
I felt bad. My original was like, just because I'm used to doing the
I
digital,
love
so I did the digital
yours,
first.
Dracula's. I mean, there's some hot pieces in there. Like man, your piece. When they told me it was your, I was like, all right.
Oh, thank you. Yeah, mine was like doing the digital was hard enough. Then when I went to do, and I think there's actually a couple of us who work digitally mostly,
Mhm.
so then we had to go back to redraw the whole thing in pencil. That was nerve wracking. I did mine like 4 times, and I was like, you know what? It's supposed to be a rough. I'll send it. I think I actually sent like 3 different versions, and I was like, DJ, you could do it at once. You could do it all together. You could burn it if you want, but here you go. But yeah, and then look, I mean,
He
the
was
book
satisfied with the ones you sent him.
I assume so. I haven't heard differently.
I like that. That means he liked the
Yeah,
ones. Yeah. All right. All right.
but I mean, it kind of cemented the whole process. I have to say, kind of cemented that, at least in my mind, art isn't and shouldn't be something, competitive. And one of the great kind of parts of this whole experience, we had our own little Instagram group that we were actually looking at everybody's progress and everything. And everybody, I have to say, really kind of collaborated. Like, hey, look, I don't know really what to do here. How does this look? How does that look? And it was more. I shouldn't say it was all about giving advice. It was just about giving like support. Like, oh, dude, this looks great. Because when you're sitting, like in my case, sometimes at night, because I had to wait until my son was in bed. My wife was pregnant at the time, so she couldn't lift anything. So it was a lot. So I'm like working 1, 2 o'clock in the morning drawing, and at that hour, like everything looks like it sucks. So it was great just to have that network to kind of clock into and really kind of share things with. But
The support, the feedback, all that's good,
yeah.
especially when you're talking about something creative like that. It's always good. That's why, like, when Brian was writing his book and he would ask about feedback and stuff like that, like I love being there for somebody when they need that kind of support, or if it's ideas or whatever, or like withdrawing. Like when Roscoe used to share his early pieces before he'd show the world and stuff. It's like, bro, that already looks good. Like,
oh yeah, and Roscoe, I mean, look. His piece first. Look, all the pieces in the book are great. If you haven't already, go to DJ's site. $20 gets you a phenomenal art book. I would put it up against any of the art books that came out in the '90s. And I say art books like this because let's face it. Like if you've been collecting for as long as I have, or many of us have, you have like here's the Wildstorm 1994 swimsuit book.
Mhm.
I'd put that up against anything like that too.
That is fantastic. I mean, like I'd only like before the con, I think I'd only seen the cover and maybe bits and pieces of like the original and stuff like that. I didn't get to see a lot of it, but the actual like book and actually, I mean, the quality
Thank
of
you,
the
Dale.
paper, the way of the book. I mean, it's fantastic. But like,
Yeah,
I highly suggest. It's not like, I mean, that they had sketchbooks like available for most artists at the con, and you'd flip through them and they were like, yeah, no, this art book it's nice.
yeah. And the best
And
part
and
is,
and, and I know a secret. I heard there might be like a giveaway for one of these art books on me and Trev, or pay attention to Trev because I know
secret,
Trev got some extras.
big plug. Yeah, and you and Trev have your show tomorrow night, actually, right?
We do.
Yeah, it's tough for me to get on Sundays. That's why I had to double check. But yeah, make
Yeah.
sure you check out. I mean, look, Mike and Trev are by far two of the best people in our community, just for a number of reasons. Everybody's the best, but that's how it
Right.
is. But Mike and Trevor are really great members of the community. Go and check them out and support them. Even
I
if you
always get, I always get the question, why do they call me evil? Because I'm the nicest person they've ever met.
exactly, there you go. It's false advertising, sir.
Something like that.
But just going back to the art book for a second, look, you're going to spend $20, and it's going to go towards C3. It's going to go to helping.
Yeah.
It's going to go to the American Cancer Society. It's not going to go to a big media
Nah,
conglomerate.
it's not. None of it goes to DJ or Rob or
Right.
any of the artists or no. Everything goes 100% to uh, fighting
Controversy.
cancer.
Sorry, just starting a
Trev
little
made his Trev.
controversy there.
It's not.
Yeah.
It's not.
But
It's his Trev.
yeah, like I shot a video talking about my motivation behind the piece. I didn't put it up yet, but one of the things I keep saying to people, like, look, it's $20. It's not going to break your wallet. Take that $20 you were going to spend on getting like put towards like the first appearance of Cassandra Nova, and just get the art book. Like those spec books that you're looking at now are going to be half that price come December. That's just the
No,
way it
see what?
goes.
Okay, so what you do, and there's a couple. There's a couple things you can do, right? They had a con poster that you could have got, but like, okay, so you're big in the community, and you have friends within this comic book community, and you value them as friends, and some of these friends happen to be talented, very talented artists, right? So what you do is you grab that art book for $20, and you help fight cancer, and you kick it in its butt, right? Okay, but with that book. You take it to these cons and you meet these people and you get them signed like drag
Yeah.
and like if okay, so, and I kind of blame this on you know um Legion of Comics and DJ Links and Rob's Fast Acts because I specifically asked if they were going to have any kind of merchandise at the booth at the con, and they said no. So if I would have known they were selling the art book, like no, I think it was like announced right before the con that they were. I was like, damn it, I didn't put that in the budget.
Was it before they announced the art book?
I don't even know that. I don't like as far as I know that like I thought the art book was gonna come closer to when they did C3, like in October kind of thing.
Yeah,
Um
they announced it about, I'm going to say maybe a month to 3 weeks before the con. But
yeah, something like that.
yeah. I mean that because that was the whole thing that when we were working under it was the whole understanding. Hey, it's going to be exclusively at the con at first, and then if there's anything left over, we'll do online orders. But yeah, I kind of like. Well, I have to say, I think it's good that they're doing things outside of October. So, because number one, then you just kind of spread, hey, here's C3
You get the
all
word
year.
out, yeah.
Right.
Mhm.
You get the word out. You're not focusing on, hey, here's 3 or 4 days where we're just doing this.
Yeah, there's
Um,
huge things coming up and no. I love the way they're
yeah,
doing them.
and you could put some extra cash aside in anticipation of October if you choose to.
Mhm.
But I mean, I'll tell you, I started sending some stuff for the C3 auction already. I look, Shortbox has some great deals going on now. Don't
They
sleep on
do.
those auctions. There may or may not, I'll say this, be a yellow label that is on its way to. Actually, I think it's there already. To Rob's residence or address now for C3. So
Hmm.
there's my plug.
Yellow label.
Yeah, Dracula's got some great work in this. Look, I'll be honest, and I'm not sweetening it up or anything else. Everybody's piece in this book is awesome. There's not one piece that is just like
Not that I
meh.
saw. I
Yeah,
didn't get a chance to look at the whole entire like page by page. Like Nama was kind of flipping through, and I think he was just highlighting like either people that were there or people he knew I knew. Because he, you being the Ted, like he definitely showed your piece. Because I don't know about you, like I had explained that with Trev, and it might be a different feeling because y'all haven't finished the book yet. But that name Ted, it has real meaning in real life. So
it
some of
does.
us, like Nauman, like that, he takes that to heart. So each one of us that are in the Tet, even some of the ones that didn't make it all the way, he still sees us as like brothers above brothers. And he
Yeah,
kind of like at the con that was Nauman. He was like, no, no, we are Tet. You are going to stay right here next to me. And I was like, hell yeah, Nauman, let's do it.
but I mean, I'll say this too. I've had that conversation with my wife. I was like, I think there's only one more book left after this one. It's like I want.
Technically two.
All I'm going to say is, if you wanted to extend it to include the second book, I wouldn't mind.
Yeah, I
But
mean, Ted, like Nauman's been asking, like other people are asking, when we're gonna do Dark Tower related. That's where it kind of gets iffy. It really depends on y'all because some of them are like Insomnia is a huge book. It's gonna be the size of the Dark Tower,
mm,
but some of those are just like it depends. For me, all those are must reads. Anything that I hear that's connected to the Dark Tower, it's a must because it's extra added information into the story that we have. So, but I think it depends on you because there's a lot of people that did not like the story, well, did not like the ending, or many various
I've
things.
been hearing that, yeah. And
Mhm.
then if they ever do a Amazon series, I heard it was on and off and on. I
It's
think we have to do that too, but that might be years off if anything. I'll be
mhm.
honest with you, I'm almost tempted to rage watch the movie even after Steve has kind of
Okay.
steered us
So
away from it.
okay,
I've heard
so
it's just terrible, but
it's not. It's not. It's. I mean, it is as far as context. Yes, it's a like it's nothing like the books. Not even story wise. Like I don't know what they were thinking. I mean, I do know the real reason. It's three, like I think it was four writer, or it was like four groups of writers. It wasn't even like individual people. And then it was like three different directors, and they each got like bits and pieces and tried to make a movie. And that's what happened with that. But like, okay, there is a way you can watch it, and it makes it a good movie. You just have to finish the series, and once you find out the secret of the series, it
mm,
like in that aspect, it like, and I'll tell you after because it kind of makes sense, but it's kind of like I can say like a multiverse version of the story is how you kind of want to like look at that, kind of thing. It's kind of like being a Power Ranger fan and like going from like the old G movies into the new Saban new movie. It's not exactly the same stuff, but it has the
mm.
same feel, that kind of thing. No,
And
but it's a bad movie. And like as far as like, because I was super excited for it, even the changes and all that. None of that deterred me away. But as far as like the story they gave us, it's really like bits and pieces of the books we've been reading, and they're not even done in a consecutive way.
yeah. I mean, to be fair, I don't know how you cram a multi-book series, and some of these
Exactly.
are thick books,
40
into
hour reads,
yeah,
like
into a.
into a
I don't even think
2 hour
the
movie.
movie's. Is it is it even 2 hours?
Nah, I
Yeah,
think it's like an hour and 45, hour and 30. It's a short, it might be 2 hours. I'm not positive, but I mean, it's not a long movie.
and it's a shame because you've got some great talent in there. I could picture McConaughey as a great Man in Black.
He
Uh,
was. I actually like him as Man in Black. I like Idris Elba's role, and
yeah,
even with the change. I mean, he made it work. And there's things that I do like about the movie. You get to hear famous quotes from the book.
mm,
Like you get to hear I don't aim with my hand. You get to hear the gunslinger credo and stuff like that, and that's cool. I go back, like I have a YouTube clip that's saved on my my private thing, and it's just that clip of like his father saying that to him in the movie just because it sounds good, kind of thing. But
the only question I have for you about the movie, I'm imagining that they don't have the full Tet in the film, but
no, technically it's just Jake. Is that's it.
yeah, because I was going to say, if having Elba
It's not
as
even the okay. It's not even the Jake you know. I can just give you some for instance. For instance, he's in the movie. He's like I want to say like 14, 15, and then like and his parents are like they're like struggling like middle like I want to say poor people. Like I don't want to be mean and say poor people. They could be like middle class, but they're not in the book. His dad's supposed to be like a TV executive, and they have maids, and like and that plays a part in who he is
right.
in the story. Now in the movie, he's just like some boy that lives in like Brooklyn or something like that, and his parents are having like problems, and for some reason they're having problems like with Jake because he's getting these visions or whatever, and like visions of Midworld and stuff like that of the gunslinger and the Man in Black, which that's another thing. Like, when did that happen in the story? But like,
Mm.
I mean, you could kind of say that because he has a touch, right? But like, he wasn't experiencing that back in New York, not until he. Okay, but like, nah, like in the movie, his parents. I think they like hire some tutor or something, and it turns out to be some bad guys that you haven't really met yet. You have, but you
Okay.
don't. You have met them. You haven't met them yet. Let's just say that. But they're coming. But like I said, it's like bits and pieces of like the weird things. Like for some, they're taking enemies like that we're meeting at the end of the story, and they put them like in Jake's intro.
But one thing I was kind of shocked reading the story and knowing a little bit more after that is that just by casting Elba as Roland, had they included the whole Tet in the film, you're going to throw off the dynamic of the whole thing because, when
That's one of my
Susanna's, yeah,
yeah, that's one of my okay, that's my favorite character, and that's one of my favorite parts. And I know it's cringy for a lot of people, but I do like the whole race like dilemma that's within the book. I like the background metaphor that he started all the way back at the drawing of the two, like a white
yeah.
man taking this black woman out of her world. Now she's truly a prisoner in this whole other world.
Well, I mean, I'll
Like
say this: it's done well, and I think that makes the main difference in it. And I think that you have to bear in mind that this was not at a time when,
mhm.
you I think were so where things were so charged that people were
You
saying,
couldn't
oh, we're
even
doing
talk
another
about
this,
it.
we're doing
Yeah,
that,
yeah.
right, right. And like I said, it's done in a manner that even if you tune out when you see these more kind of themes of social injustices and whatnot, you're not going to run into that in the series. If anything, like I said, I think it brings an important kind of balance and
I think it just brings real world depth, especially being like
yeah,
mainly American born and knowing that like how race has played a huge part within our. I mean, you're talking about our whole beginning, like America's beginning, but like I think it just play it. It's just more like when you get to the end of the story, and we haven't got to the reason why Suzanne is my favorite character. The reason she's my favorite character is the ending of her story. And yes, there's an ending to everybody in the, I mean, some of them we've already seen, but
hmm
like her ending to me is what, because I had favorites going through it. I think Jake was originally like my favorite, being like a teenager when I read this. No, Susanna, her whole story, like all what he comes out, like what everything like he's been doing up until the end, that's what culminates for me, because there's going to be some endings of some characters, and there's many fans can agree they do not like their ending.
hmm
Like some characters do not get the best endings, and then it's kind of on purpose kind of thing.
yeah. Well, I have to say, and I'm not kissing your ass. You do a very good job proctoring our entire series and keeping the conversation moving along. I've taken literature classes in college. I took two or three actual, you know,
Why
fiction
didn't
classes, and I'm like, this is what it reminds me of. You talking about because you ask great questions. You ask questions that really make us think. So it's not just like a quiz, like, hey, what was this character's thing? It was more like, hey, what do you think about this? And it really kind of, for lack of a better word, because the coffee's wearing off, lubricates the whole kind of creative discussion, I think, between us.
I like when it gets like the like when it gets Steve off, like because he's read not okay. Steve's doing it like me, where he's rereading, but he's rereading on rereading between each segment. Each book I think he's read like 3 or 4 times between the 2 week gap that I gave y'all because we read so quick. So like when I can stump him, or when I get him, like when I get almonds juices going, or Aaron, when they're like, ooh,
Mm.
that's I love that. But this is something I've wanted to do for a long time. It's the same with comics. I started my YouTube channel because I didn't have a lot of people in real life that want to talk to me about comics. I could take my video, the camera in there, and just put it on the coffee table, and my brother and his best friend are sitting out there playing Fortnite, right? And I could go be like, "Hey, did y'all know this about Deadpool and Wolverine?" Well, Deadpool's first appearance was in New Mutants. And I could like go into my comic book stuff, and you would watch how they just like filter out. And
Mm.
I mean, I've gotten that my whole life, where I've never met people that physically wanted to talk about the same nerd stuff. The only nerddom that is really video games. Video games, you do have a community because it's been
Yeah.
sociable for quite a while, But like, as far as like doing video, and my whole lead to YouTube was specifically like, hey, I want to talk about comics. Who wants to talk about comics with me? And it's
So
the same thing with the Dark Tower. I've always wanted to talk to real people, about the series, kind of thing.
two things. One, Dark Tower related. I have to say, Steve has me almost like sold on. All right, I have to check out like the Dark Tower Omni or whatever. My only fear is that if I pick it up, I may never actually finish the whole thing.
Okay, so I love the comic, and the comic, there's 2 reasons why I can suggest it, but you have to like this series. And
Yeah.
this is my favorite story. I mean, I love Star Wars, but this trumps Star Wars. I love Halo. This is my favorite story that I've ever come across, period, for many reasons. But like, so I have like a deep love for this. In the comic, if they, in my opinion, they did it right, where it's like the comics mainly focus on parts of the book that you have read, and you're just getting it to see it in a visual format. But there
Mm.
is new stuff. It's not just like, I mean, because there's like camera angles that you didn't think about in the shot while he was describing it to us, or stuff like that. Okay, so that's not all the comics. Some of the comics, like Jericho Hill, you're never going to get that in the books. You don't get to
Mm.
find out what had, you get the bits and pieces that we're getting, and that's about it. So to get the full story on Jericho Hill, they actually did that in the comic, where it's beat for beat, pretty much like Wizard and Glass, how you go back to the past and find out what happened there.
And that's good to hear because, to be honest with you, I was always of the opinion when you go to see a comic book movie, well, this is not quite like how this is, not quite like how that is. And then it made sense once I actually read why Alan Moore doesn't watch adaptations of his work, and then actually seeing Watchmen, and even though it's not one of Alan Moore's work, Sin City or 300, I did finally get a sense like, okay, when you're sitting and you're reading a book or you're reading a comic, you have that voice in your head of this is how this character sounds, this is how this looks. When you're just kind of presented to it as a movie, or I guess in this case as a comic, typically your brain is shut off and like, okay, this is how it is. This is what we want you to look at. This is deliberately looking like that. But to hear that the Omni, at least, or the comic, I should say, really explores, hey, yeah, this is what you know, but here's a little bit more context, that's refreshing.
I want to say the first, because it's done in series. So the first couple series pretty much focuses on Wizard and Glass, and it's stuff that you already know. It's just done in a visual format. The the art is Jay Lee, so he's one of my favorite artists, and I do
He's a
love
great
the
artist.
art,
I like
the
his stuff
look.
a lot.
Oh, I love it. It's like getting to see, okay, because
Later, Dale.
We know John Farson by them, but they don't really go in descriptive detail about John Farson and stuff like that. So actually getting to see what he looks like, kind of thing, and yes, he is a man, kind of thing, and but getting like terms like that Stephen King approved this, and this is canon part of the. Okay, so that's all the first cool thing about the comic. The second thing is in every issue, and it really starts after the first series. The comics are regular comic size, but I want to say the last like 5 pages of each book, it's like they're these little side stories that they start in like maybe the first issue, and you got to continue with, but there's maybe 7 issues in a series, so each one has a bit of piece of the side story. The
Hmm.
side stories are specifically stuff that they touched on in the books that didn't get a lot of detail, like Merlin and the King Arthur. Like you actually get like how that all started, how they came up with the guns versus swords. Like literally Excalibur was a sword and gets melted down into the first gun, and that has been passed down. You know,
Wow.
um, no, but you get like a lot of those background stories. There's one specifically, you get a lot of like the Arthur Eld stories, and there's one specifically that involve like vampires and werewolves and Merlin and like King Arthur getting tricked and like, oh no, it's fantastic. But not only that, it's specifically written by Stephen King and Robin Forth. And Robin Forth is his like second command on the Dark Tower series. So
Hmm.
they're all like super canon stories. So if there's a lot, that's the other, like, I mean, if there's like bits and pieces of the stories that you were like, man, I wish they wouldn't have went into detail about that, like Posttronics, like the company. There's a huge story in there that explains all that, like how it
Yeah.
got started, why they started it,
Yeah.
that
I
kind
might
of
check
stuff.
it out after we're done with the series. Like, honestly, if there were like an Ollie's near me, and they had it, I would definitely do. I think the closest Ollie's like is like 4 hours from me. I know that Matt Woods and I plotted it out once, but you never know. And unfortunately, it's one of the few things that, it probably due to licensing, I would imagine, that is not available on the Marvel Unlimited app. Because I
I'm
did
not
look there
sure.
too. No, I
Is
looked.
Oh,
Yeah,
it's not? Okay, okay.
yeah. Well, but they update from time to time, so maybe we'll get lucky one day and it'll be there. One thing I did need to shift gears. I wanted to ask you, because I know that we're almost at the top of the hour here. Um, for a while, you were doing some really great quality comic book reviews. I know that you were taking a break from comics. Are you ready to dip your toe back in yet, or have you already?
Why, yes, I have actually. That
There
that
we
was
go.
what the part of the whole big break was saving up and attending Heroes Con. It was a big journey. It was a lot of money that went into me getting there this year. Um, so that was a big reason why, not the only reason, but it was a big reason why I stopped the reviews. I was purchasing a crap ton of comics to do the reviews, kind of thing. And it sounds like a dilemma. It's really not. It was just a matter of like, hey, what can I shut off versus what
Yeah.
can't I? Um, no, but at Heroes Con, I specifically picked up already 2 books. Kind of one book that I mentioned that I picked up from somebody, and then I did get a Doug Wagner's new book, Plastic. I'm drawing a blank at the bed and bodies or
I'm
something
not
like that.
familiar. No.
Plastic Verse. You are not familiar with vinyl or plush or
I
Plus
think I
dropped
heard
in
of vinyl.
2000. Plus dropped in 2003. It's about like a bunch of furries that are serial killers, and it's about like them gaining a new member into their tribe kind of thing.
Hmm.
Vinyl is about a serial killer that he has a best friend who's an FBI agent, and the FBI agent gets stolen by a cult. So to battle the cult, he calls upon like a group of serial killers, and it's like this whole like serial killer group versus this crazy cult.
Which one was that?
Um, that's Vinyl,
That sounds
and
interesting.
and Vinyl has another kind of big thing because the serial killer in question, he has like a very bad memory, and the only way he can remember stuff is by listening to music, and that's why they call him the vinyl killers, because he's used their bodies are usually found with music playing or a vinyl record going kind of thing.
Hmm.
Plastic is about a serial killer that is um trying to, okay, how do I, because this one is the most bizarre synopsis. Okay, it's about a serial killer who the love of his life is a blow up doll, and she gets kidnapped, and the whole story is about him rescuing the blow up doll.
That almost sounds a little reminiscent of. I can't. I don't know the name of the show itself. Roku. If you have a Roku player, I don't know you could probably find it online or something. But they had a bunch of original content. Some of it was great. One of the first things we watched was with Anna Kendrick, and I think it was written by Dan Harmon, where she played his girlfriend. I think it was also partly biographical on Dan Harmon's part, who I guess going through Dan Harmon's mansion or whatever, finds one of his old real dolls that he used to use and basically cleans it up and forms a friendship with it, where they're like, in her head they're like talking to each other, and she takes it to a place where basically like I think towards the end they're actually like pitching a show with the doll to network executives. It's wild. They never did anything past the
I'm gonna have to
first
go
season I'm aware of, but
that.
yeah,
It does. It
kinda
does
reminded
sound
me
like
of.
that because that's how he treats his doll. Like they do have conversations, and he believes it's kind of like a mix of Mannequin and like what you just referred, like the '80s movie Mannequin, where he believed like
I remember that. Yeah,
the mannequin would come to life and talk to him and blah blah blah. Like it's kind of like that. And so to him, like someone kidnaps his wife kind of thing. It's not a blow up doll. Oh, I can say one of the unique features in plastic is he only kills using plastic. And
wow.
he gets really creative. Most time it's like plastic over the head kind of thing, but like there are a couple times he kills like a plastic army man, or like there's some interesting stuff. Doug Wagner. Okay, we've talked about two of my favorite writers, but Doug Wagner is definitely one of my favorite writers, and Stephen King.
Is there anything traditional from, let's say, like Marvel and DC that you're interested in dipping your toe back into?
Absolute Power from DC sounds really, really interesting. But Marvel lately, not so much. And I
Yeah,
keep looking at solicitations. I mean, the Blood Hunt thing would have been up my alley, but it's just either bad timing or it just wasn't for me. I don't know, because I'm looking at all the solicitations for everything, and it's like they're bringing the Venomverse back.
yeah,
It's like it's kind of just recycle right now.
yeah. I mean, I'll be honest with you. The Krakoan X-Men for me was giant. They're
hmm
ending it, or it's over at this point by now. I don't necessarily know how much I'll be continuing with
I
the
I
X
love
books.
X-Men. I love X-Men, and I loved Hickman. I mean, I had to do it in trades. The single format of Hickman stuff just it killed me.
Yeah.
The script, and oh man, I ragged on that so much. But his whole like completed story, oh, it's magnifique. Okay, but
Oh
like
yeah.
where we're going from that, and I know John and a couple other people are like really excited, but like it wasn't. I was like, man, then we look like we're splitting up teams again in the '90s. I was
Yeah.
like, all right.
And that's the whole thing for me. It was like I was almost done with comics right before Krakoa, and I was like, let me check this out, and it was such a departure from everything I had read and everything. I was like, all right, I'm into it. And look, not everything was great about it. I'm not going to I'm not going to sugarcoat it or anything like that. But Hickman did a great job for the most part. New Mutants, I think, up until Vita ALF
I
was a
like New
great read.
Mutants. It was good.
Yeah, and it was a low key great
Actually,
read.
okay, and a lot of people talk about this, but X-Men is like, because I was a Batman fan and I read the whole Bat family, and that's huge to read, everything that's Bat included.
Mhm.
X-Men is kind of like that too, you can read X-Men and they have all these offshoots. The way Hickman like included all the other like I thought they were all fantastic.
Oh
Each
yeah.
one up like separately, like the Kitty Pride stuff and her being the pirate, and like no, like and it's funny. I kept telling myself like, I'm not gonna do a tie-in of this. And like the tie-ins for all Swords of X, all of them were
Oh yeah.
great. I was all like that. They were all well done. They were all like they actually had like a format plan that they all had to stick to, and you could tell within the frame of the story. It was real nice.
Yeah. And that's why after Hickman left, I felt like, because people were starting to complain, hey, there are a lot of titles going on. They started to say, all right, we're going to make them a little bit more separate. You did lose a lot of that cohesion. But I have to say, if you have not read Percy's X Force and Wolverine, I just finished reading
Mhm.
that last arc. There were some things that could have been removed, but it might be the greatest Wolverine and Sabretooth fight I've read since Wolverine number 10 back in the day. I'm still kind of like blown from it. And I'll say this, Percy did a great job of not only laying his own kind of, putting his own mark on the character, but really respecting the history behind both characters.
Yeah. So.
And like, look, Wolverine and Sabretooth, in my opinion, don't fight quite enough as you'd expect, and that's a good thing.
For them being rivals. And...
I'll say this, I think the last time I remember them fighting was Jeff Loeb's run. This blows that out of the water completely. This whole battle.
Well, the last time for me was like Origin, but does that count?
Yes. Well, they were technically, Origin. Yeah, he was in the sequel, which was meh. But yeah, no, the one in the Loeb run, I'll spoil a 15-year-old story at this point. Is when they started talking more about the Muramasa blade. And
yeah. Oh yeah, you might be right.
Yeah,
you might be right actually.
Yeah,
because right after that he came back and they threw him basically in jail.
Well, but this is what I like too, is that part of Percy's story in here is he says, he does a great job. Like we were talking about how King cares for the characters. You get that same feeling with Percy with these characters, because he really goes into drawing, hey, this is why Wolverine is like this and Sabretooth is like this, and really establishing them both as kind of like one of those better, flip of the coin hero villain, like Batman and Joker and Xavier and Magneto, where, hey, these are basically the same person, but one went this way and one went the other.
Yeah, they just disagree on like one small thing.
Well, it turns out to be something pretty big, but it really makes it a point of fleshing out, like, hey, Sabretooth, we've tried to make you a hero before, and it doesn't quite work. And why is that?
Okay, so that's funny you bring that up, because there are moments in the X-Men's past that I did like, and them trying to bring Sabretooth in as the hero or whatever, like the cover with him and Jean on, kissing or whatever. I did like that, but at the same time, I feel like they just kind of failed in the end game. Like, what was your plan with this? I mean, it's not like the whole time that Sabretooth was there, he was trying to do devious and downright dirty stuff. It wasn't like he was trying to be a good guy. They were just kind of forcing him to be a good guy. And I think that was just more like a failure on the writer part. Like, they came up with this great idea and it sounds cool in theory, but they just didn't do anything with it.
Yeah, I mean, to be fair, around the time they brought him in, like, things started kind of, I think, going a little off the rails with X-Men in general.
Well, you have Colossus going bad. That's when Colossus goes to a villain because his sister died. He blames the X-Men for that. I mean, it was like one of the funnest and weirdest times for the X-Men, because you're talking about them really being slipped and divided. That's when Professor X started appearing as like a bad guy.
Yeah.
That was because that was after the whole Onslaught thing.
Yeah, and like after Onslaught, I felt like that was the point in the 90s the X-Men started to fade a bit. I'll be honest, I was surprised in X-Men 97 that they used Bastion, because I did not like Operation Zero Tolerance, the story, when I was reading it whatsoever.
I didn't either. I like the way they did it in 97, but it was more like a calm, because they really haven't done that until recently. That's what Hickman's whole thing was Nimrod and like Bastion and Hope and all that, and then they hadn't really defined that until recently. I don't even think, like, going through Hickman's run, that was going to be the main, like, like, hey, this is going to be a major part of the story, is like Nimrod, what's going on, because he didn't do it like, I mean, it was all stuff in the background, bits and like Easter eggs and stuff that led up to that reveal, so them using the X-Men 97 kind of surprised the hell out of me, because they generally don't tend to go with new information. It's all like past, comic stuff that's worked.
They did a great job of just kind of forging their own past and kind of sprinkling in stuff. Like the whole episode 5, I was watching it with my wife, and it was like, they already kind of adapted a little bit of the Hellfire Gala or the Mutant Massacre. I still kind of went in between.
It
back
had
and
the
forth.
same feel. Yeah. We even said that, like the way the Tri-Sentinel came out, and like I mean, officially, I don't even think we got a name for it in the episode. Like, I don't think they ever called it the Tri-Sentinel or whatever. But even the way the massacre went down, there's never been a moment like that ever happened within the comics. That's the only time, like the Hellfire, like even Krakoa. No, a lot of that, like, and I want to say it wasn't even just that. The way they pieced all the relationships together, because that Forge and Storm thing wasn't one moment in comic. They
Right.
were all like separate moments, not one. The whole like Goblin Queen thing. That's the only thing I can say. I wasn't like. I wish they would have gone into a little more explanation.
Well, maybe she'll return. They've
Hmm.
got everybody's focused on Gambit returning as Death, but I think they're going to throw us a curveball.
You think they're gonna do the Wolverine? You think they're gonna
I
do
don't
the
know.
scroll like the comic thing?
No, I don't think they're going to touch scrolls because I
No.
think that's going to be a little too wonky for them. But I'm not going to make any predictions at least at this point. I'm just kind of sit back and say, all right, whenever it comes out, let's take a look. But let me say this on this note: we've been going for a little while here. I want to be respectful of your time, of course. Again, if you don't know Evil Mike, first, where have you been?
Hi.
Second, yeah, check out Evil's Comics. Again, he's got a show tomorrow with Trev and Mike and Trev, however you want to do it. I think that's usually streamed from Trev's channel, right?
Yep.
Yeah. Tune in if you can. If you like me and you watch the replay crew, that's okay too. But
Even if you're there for a minute, that's cool.
yeah,
Just say hi.
stop in, say hello. Even though his name is Evil, he's a nice guy. Trust me. And next week we're going to be back on the tower. Yeah, look for Evil's Comics channel, and we'll be there. So I think I'm going to wrap it up for now, Mike. We've been bothering you for a while here. We've been palavering. But
it's a fun conversation. I enjoyed it.
It is fun.
I didn't know what we were going to talk about, and people, this is all his criteria. I didn't. But everybody thinks I want to talk about Stephen King all the time, and like I can talk about him all the time, but I didn't bring this up. He did.
I did. Honestly, I didn't know what we were talking about either. I was like, hey, you know what? Mike's fun. Let me have Mike on.
I don't care. I can talk about anything.
There we go. Well, everybody, enjoy the rest of your weekend. Peace, love, and comics.
Bye.